Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the World of Football podcast here on the Dugout Football channel. We are back, we're live, and we're ready to talk about football. I have connection issues. That's a good way to start a podcast. Having connection issues, but that's just classic Northern Ireland internet. So obviously everyone can see there is no Douglas here on the channel. Doug has changed his schedule. He will only be on the podcast twice a month now, meaning that I'll be leading the podcast a bit more on his own channel because he's that lazy, but I'm a nice guy, so I'll do all the work for him. You know, that's what good friends do. We carry the load for other people. But we do still have an amazing panel, plus an extra special guest who is so he's got some controversial opinions still, but we'll let Stephen talk this time. So first of all, we're going to start off with the man who the first half of his game felt like banging his head off a wall and regretted getting up at 7 o'clock in the morning. So you have an absolute glimpse, bruise all over his body, and is still recovering from an absolutely eventful game that took place on Saturday afternoon. Nathan, how are you feeling?
Yeah, absolutely brilliant, thanks. The streak is over, even though it was embarrassing that it was there in the first place. As usual, Dalman out. And it's scary that the betting has been suspended for our new manager. So whoever's listening to this, no Houghton, no Flynn, no Pulis, none of the other dinosaurs. Reece, call in the asteroid, mate. Thanks for having me on.
We've got a man who he still doesn't know how Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is in a job, and now Antonio Conte is off the market. He's figuring what the actual hell is life. George is smiling, but we all know inside he is depressed as hell. George, hello.
Hi, Josh. Yep, excellent to be on again. Yes, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. You know how fast a week and how much changes within a week. We all thought he was definitely getting moved on, and Antonio Conte was sure to be coming in. But within a week, he's back at the wheel. Everyone's behind him again, including the most important people, obviously, which is the board. And Conte looks as though he's going to go to Tottenham Hotspur. So, yes, Ollie's eighth life goes on and goes on and on and on. But yeah, thank you for having me.
We've got one guy. He apparently calls himself. He's not even a human being. He says that he's a machine. He's apparently he's much better than all of us because we're just men, according to Reece. But Reece, I don't like you, but you're here. Just say something quickly so I don't have to talk to you.
We know that's the biggest bullshit you've ever said, mate. We know you love me. Welcome to the Clash and Chaos Brigade, and obviously I'm the leader of it. So let's go.
And then we've got a man who was quite literally dragged in from the subject just off his own show. The man who he's sticking to his opinion, which I absolutely respect. It is Stephen from STV TV. Stephen, thank you very much for coming on once again. We're not going to banter you because Arsenal are actually doing better. So you've chosen a good time to come on.
Mate, you can banter me as much as you want. Like this, it might be 7 games unbeaten, but we still perform like crap. So.
Sexual.
Yeah, you can dream on, mate.
Like, I've got a tickler for it tonight. It must be like hearing all the terms coming out from
when we play you, we'll make sure we'll keep on in the job for another week.
When you play us, mate, you'll be lucky if you even make it to our ground.
Yeah, no, I'll tell you, you'll probably get lost.
So we've got some comments. How are you going to do a Champions League predictions? Well, this is Doug's channel, but I'm assuming Doug will answer your question in the chat. He is obviously in the chat. Hello, Helly. Yeah, George is also in the chat. George, unfortunately, I cannot confirm this is not my channel. I wish I could mind read what Doug is saying. That'd be amazing if I could just mind read what everybody's saying. But good evening, folks. Hello, Ankit on your cricket channel. And hello, nice to everyone here. I guess good to see you. Thank you very much for coming in. So, and there we go, 8 p.m. There you go. There's your answer for your Champions League predictions. If you have Mambo to win, Doug, we're going to have some very serious words on Facebook. So, let's get started. So, we're not going to start off with the Premier League like we typically do. There was a manager who got sacked before Nuno Espirito de Santo did, and that is Ronald Koeman, obviously getting sacked from Barcelona. Barcelona's run of form is honestly, it's terrible. It is absolutely just they've not kept a clean sheet in 16 games under Ronald Koeman. I don't know how much goals they scored, but I know it's very, very little. And he probably stayed in the job longer than he probably should have. So obviously, I know you're a big fan of Ronald Koeman. Do you? I would ask you this question: Was Ronald Koeman doing a job that was impossible given the Barcelona's current statement, or was he simply maybe just not good enough to manage a club that he's very well remembered for?
To be honest, mate, I like him I like the guy. I think he's a good guy. I think he's a good manager. The problem is what he had above him. I look at Barcelona overall, like they are quote unquote a sinking ship, and quote unquote, I love it to death. But in all fairness, though, like this is deep-rooted problems that have gone back a long time. Whoever gets the Barcelona job is already fucked to begin with, because one, you've got to deal with the mess from Bartomeu, and then you've got to deal with the mess that's come from what Laporta's going to do. And Laporta, with all due respect, he's also a criminal. He's a terrorist. Like when it comes to running Barcelona, he's just going to run it the way he did a decade ago, and it won't work. And I've got the league up in front of me right now. That's what I'm looking at, and they're sitting in ninth in the league. Jeez. 4 wins, 4 draws, and 3 losses. They've scored 16 goals and they've conceded 12. I mean, if I was Barcelona, I wouldn't have sacked them. I'd be celebrating that they've actually got some points on the board. But in all fairness, though, they are in a situation where it's not gonna work. Their Champions League form's poor as well. I did say when we did the Champions League prediction stream a couple of months ago, I said Barcelona were not getting out of the group, and I had a few folk in the live chat laughing at my face. I said it'd be Benfica, and I said it would be Bayern Munich. I said Bayern Munich would win the group, and I said Benfica would finish second. And I can remember the chat laughing, but who's laughing now? I am. But in all fairness, I like him as a guy, but as a manager, he's in dire straits. Barcelona are fucked. They want, funnily enough, they want to bring in the likes of Van de Beek on loan in January. Yeah, you can loan him in with what? Rupees? Like pencils? Like, what are you going to use to bring him in? Because you have to use money, and they've hardly got any. They went against what they brought to the dance, and like we all remember the Barcelona team from a decade ago. It was probably one of the best teams I've ever seen. It was built on La Masia and smart signings. Now, they became what they hated. They became Real Madrid. If you actually think about it, Barcelona became Real Madrid. They went out and done the Galacticos, and they took it to a whole new level. They put themselves in major debt. So if anything, I feel sorry for Ronald Koeman, but in the end, it was the right choice, because they have to recover their season. But it doesn't matter who they bring in. They are royally fucked. And to be fair, they deserve it. They absolutely deserve it.
George, as I said, Barcelona currently are set in 9th place on 16 points, 1 win in their last 5. They drew their last game against a very, 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 very average, a very average side. I think it was. I can't remember who.
As well.
They drew to Daniel Alves. They drew Daniel Alves under their caretaker manager. Barcelona are facing a serious threat here of playing no Champions League football next season. Like, it's a football. Do you think Barcelona have any? Well, I think they'll get European football. They'll probably win the Copa del Rey or something like they normally do, which will get them European football.
They'll beat Bilbao in the final. They'll beat Bilbao in the Copa del Rey final. When that comes around.
George, do you think that Barcelona have any light at the end of the tunnel, or do you think this is the start of a long decrease ahead of the football club?
I think it's unfortunately, it's going to be a long time before they're relevant again, I believe. Obviously, we've talked many times about their financial troubles. Most of the time, if you're a club, you need to try and buy your way out of trouble. And unfortunately, the personnel, as we know, obviously losing Messi was a massive blow. And the personnel that they've currently got are not very good. Obviously, they've got their Memphis Depay is sort of almost by himself, really, in that Barcelona team, trying to create things, but he's not
relying on that young boy too. What's his name?
Yeah.
The young lad, the left winger, the new number 10. Is that Fati?
Ansu Fati.
Yeah. They're relying on him as well. And with all due respect, I think we can all agree he is a quality player. I think we can all agree he has quality, but he is not. He is not the answer. He ain't the answer.
I don't think he's ready to just yet. He really needs to get a loan move somewhere lower in the league just to learn his trade, or maybe even abroad. I think would be the better option, because the Liga is one of the most skillful and quality leagues in the world. But
it's not just that. It's just that at such a young age, you're supposed to be taking on the pressure of Barcelona, which is probably one of the top 2 sides in the world. Yeah. Should we say? So
on their best day,
you got to cope with all the pressure and that, and the expectations of that. The expectations are to go and win the league. There's no like finishing top 4 or anything like that. This you are supposed to go and at least challenge for the league.
So, I agree. What else for you? No, I agree with you. What else were you saying there, George, in regards to like personnel? Because I think you were spot on when it comes to who they've got, like with the buy and all that. I think you're right.
Can we just think also they replaced Lionel Messi with Luc de Jong, who's literally one of the worst strikers I've ever seen in my life.
I can see why they're. When I look at it, I think I said at the start of the season, moving Messi on was the right decision for Barcelona in the long term, and I stand by it because what he's done so far at PSG has been pretty much nailed in the head. He's not delivered. And get up you, but in terms of Barcelona, they had to reset, and I can understand why they went back to the Barcelona of old, where they've tried to bring in Dutch players and then promote youth players, and they've tried to go that way. The problem is, Dutch forwards aren't what they used to be. These aren't the days of like Cruyff and all that. Like they don't have that type of forward anymore. Like Dutch football is trying to rebuild, but they're rebuilding through defence and midfield, not strikers. I don't think you could look at the Dutch system, and I don't think you could name one good Dutch striker. I don't think you can because De Jong's crap. That Weghorst, he's awful. And that's the end of it. And this is no disrespect to the Dutch because I absolutely love the Dutch, but they don't have a good number 9. It's why they having to rely on wingers as false 9s now for their system. And that says it all for Dutch football. Like that's how far they're falling. So with all due respect, if you're going to bring in Dutch players, bring in some defence or bring in like the midfielders, but don't bring in their forwards. It's pointless.
That's fair enough. Stephen,
George, continue. I think George. I wanted to hear George's last statement before.
Sorry. Go ahead, George.
I was just going to say, obviously, Reece has sort of covered it anyway. It's just that the state of their squad is terrible. Ultimately, speaking about the prognosis of their season altogether, obviously Reece called it at the very start that they're not going to qualify from the group. I don't think they are either. I mean, they are still in with a chance of it, but I mean that team is absolutely atrocious, and it's just worse and worse. Obviously for Barcelona, and I mean obviously their fans have enjoyed the supremacy for a long time. Obviously they've had some real success, recently, in the recent what I would consider anyway the recent past within the last 10 years or so. But unfortunately, that's the thing with football, isn't it? It goes in cycles, and even from the greatest heights that Barcelona had, there's always those lows, unfortunately. And there's quite a few big clubs obviously going through the lows of their cycles at the moment. Obviously, Barcelona, Manchester United as well, Arsenal as well. Obviously, that a real low. So it's just very unfortunate and. For Barcelona, there's for me anyway, in my opinion, there's no light at the end of the tunnel, because they haven't got the finances to break open that light, so to speak.
It has just been brought to my attention that we do have 6 dislikes on the podcast. If anybody is not particularly happy with anything, please, you're more than welcome to say in the chat if there's anything that you're not particularly happy with. But please do hit the like button. We're trying to entertain you guys. But if there's anyone anyone's not particularly happy with, please do be welcome to say.
It's all right, Josh. They all boost the channel anyway, mate. So there we go.
It's his fault. It's his fault. It's because he's an heterosexual.
Like, share the shame, folks. Hit the thumbs down. Show yourself. It's not often I see it. Not often I see that. But anyway, Stephen.
That's right though. George is right though. Like in terms of like the supremacy, because I'm looking at what they've done. See, in terms of league titles since 2004, when they went through the Finnish rebuild, they didn't win a league title for 6 years, which was 98-99. Then it was 04-05, 2000. So they won the league in 2005 season. They won it in 06. Then they went 08-09, 09-10, 2011, then 2012-13. Then they won 2014-15, 15-16, 17-18, 2018-19. That's what, like 9-10 league titles in the space of like 14-15 years. Mm-hmm. So like, and obviously you include the Copa del Rey success, the Champions League, which they've won 4 times since 2006 as well. They've won that 4 times. The amount of fucking Super Copas, all that crap, the Club World Cups, 2 sextuples. Probably the first time I've ever said that in my life. They've done all that, but I think the one thing is they stuck to the way of play, and I think they need to do exactly what Ajax did. Like when Johan Cruyff returned to Ajax 10 years ago, they went, we're going to go back to what we are as a club. Barcelona need to go back to what they were. Like whether they do it the expensive way, which is going to set them back further, or they play it smart. You look at those wages that some of those players are getting. Does any of those players, realistically, the amount of money they get into hardly any of the top 4 teams in the Premier League? Hardly, except the midfield. They get into Man United's midfield all day long. But you look at the top wage players, most of them are bang average talent. And I'm like, why are you getting so much money? What the fuck is going on there? And that's where player power at Barcelona has become a real problem. I said that about Messi, he had too much power. And now you look at this squad, there's a lot of unnecessary power there. And they need to get it back, the board, but they're bored as shit anyway.
Stephen, in terms of Barcelona's new manager, it's going to be bad luck. It's going to be Xavi. It's just a matter of time until Barcelona can. It's just a matter of when Barcelona can work out a deal with Xavi's current club. Now, obviously, you're Arteta out. Obviously, Arteta coming back as a rookie coach. Frank Lampard got sacked at Chelsea. Solskjaer was on strings at Manchester United, but we'll get into more details about that later on. Do you? No, well, yes, we will. Do you think Xavi walking into this current Barcelona team is a good thing for morale? You know, fans will get behind him. He'll be given time, or do you think this is a recipe for disaster?
I think for the way Barcelona is right now, that's not what they need at all. They need someone that's experienced enough to handle such a job like that. The thing is that the problem is that Xavi's already a legend, and it's like kind of what you would have maybe with Vieira Palace, for example. Say if we like, for example, we decided to get Vieira and it all went tits up, it'd be an absolute nightmare to get rid of him. And I think that's the same with, and he erects his legacy at
there's that pain
as well. And it's kind of what Man United are going through with Oli at the minute as well. And it's kind of that's exactly what could happen. And with Xavi being as inexperienced as he is, that is not a good move for Barcelona at the right moment. They need someone experienced who can handle such a job, because it's going to be a massively difficult task to be able to fulfill. And even then, I think it's going to take 2 or 3 managers to sort it out even then. So I don't even think it's going to take even one manager.
I haven't seen the managerial shortlist, but I know Xavi's the favourite, and I called it last year. I said if Ronald Koeman gets sacked, Xavi will be the manager. I called it on this show last year. And I look at Ten Hag, and that makes a lot of sense, and I hope to hell he doesn't go there, because that would really kill my 2021 already. That would end 2021 for me if he went there, and there's still 2 months to go. Fucking hell. But I look at Barcelona, and I'm probably going to get Barcelona. Like, I know there a fair few Barcelona fans watch this show, and I'm probably going to get killed for this. But do you think they should go back to somebody who actually, even though it wasn't always great football, it was serious for them to rebuild? Do you think they should go back to Valverde? I know it didn't work out well last time, but you actually look at what he did for him.
He shouldn't have been sacked.
He shouldn't have been sacked. I think he was doing a great job at Barcelona.
I agree.
I don't know what people think of it, but I think Valverde was doing a great job. But I think if you actually look at it in terms of stabilising the ship and getting them playing decent football to actually get them back to what they need, I think you need this. I think you need the experienced approach. I agree with Stephen. I wouldn't mind Valverde going back to Barcelona. I think it'd be the right choice. Xavi is a great long-term prospect for them down the line. I think that'd be brilliant to watch, because I love Xavi as a player, and he's doing okay in Qatar. But there's a difference going from Qatar to managing Barcelona. Like Barcelona being alongside Real Madrid, the elite club in world football, fuck knows how long. Yeah, he did lose that 4-0 lead. He did lose that lead, but to be fair, right now, I think the only thing they need is the league. The Champions League, they're not even going to contend with it. But who did they bring in? Is there anybody going to go in as a caretaker? I don't see anyone going caretaker.
To be honest with you, even if they just get a manager into us at the end of the season, they just need a manager to get back to keep them in the Champions League. Because they're not going to stay in the group stages or last for the group stages. So at a minute, they just need to focus on getting them from the league into the Champions League spots at the minute.
Did you see how bad?
Otherwise, it gets even worse. I bet you some of those players have got clauses in their contracts that if they're not in the Champions League, they'll have to go.
Oh yeah,
they probably do as well with the state of their ownership, just
writing
everything in their contracts.
Yeah, and then because they're mostly thinking they guaranteed it, so that's going to end up even 10 times worse.
Mm-hmm. No,
just to say, I would love to know. What was going through George's mind when he had to type nothing worse than trying to check out. I'm sure George figured. I was thinking. So, just a question for Josh: do you think Chelsea could go for Frankie De Jong or a player like that? I do not see Chelsea going for a midfielder for a long time. Jorginho, Kovacic, Ruben Loftus-Cheek, Billy Gilmore still in the ranks.
Kante's there. When we get Ten Hag, he's coming to us.
Even Sparkley's actually making a positive impact off the bench. Chelsea are absolutely fine for midfielders. I would take him, but we don't need him. That's for sure. What's up, lads? Hello, Pete. We're getting on to Manchester City very soon, so please do hang around for that. But we are going to move on to the Premier League, and Nuno Espirito Santo got sacked after 10 games of the Premier League. Right, George, I'll start with you. Now, without you trying to say Nuno should have stayed for the sack of Antonio Conte, do you think Nuno was fairly sacked, or do you think after 10 games is a bit too harsh by Daniel Levy?
After 10 games certainly is harsh. I think that makes him. I can't remember off the top of my head exactly. I did see what the statistics were in terms of like shortest ever reigns of managers, and he's definitely he's either now top, obviously with 10 games, or he's certainly like amongst the first
Frankie
couple.
De Boer's still the
the
shortest reign. I think De Boer, and then it's a Watford manager. I think a Watford manager lasted 9 games. Then it's Nuno, but he's in that bracket. I can't wait to hear your opinion on this, mate.
So for me, what I would say, and it's kind of hard to sort of keep Manchester United out of this. I would say that for me, it does show that Levy and the Tottenham board do have higher standards somewhat than Manchester United. Tottenham are in a very similar sort of place to us, in terms of points accrual this season, position. Obviously, I think they're only a couple of points behind us at the current juncture, and also I also think that on paper at least they've probably had the harder 10 games than we have. I think we haven't played necessarily as many of the good, what you might classify as the good teams, as Tottenham have. So it's kind of you can't really tell necessarily that it's a true position at the moment. I think even after 10 games. But what I would say is they clearly felt that it wasn't going to work with him. There were clearly signs. Obviously, this is a manager though that did have a very good start, as we know, 3 wins on the spin, won a manager of the month in the first month this season. But clearly things haven't been going right. He has also been hampered by the man that I've now called last week, I should say, that I've now called finished. Whether that comes back to bite me or not will remain to be seen. But Harry Kane certainly has been absolutely atrocious this season, missing in action. I think he may be a victim of the system. He may want away as well, but certainly they're not getting the best out of him. Also, what Tottenham have struggled with, which they always have done, I think, particularly over the last couple of seasons, is that they do have an over-reliance on Heung-min Son and Harry Kane, and particularly their goals. I think it's only, the only player that scored, I think Heung-min Son and Harry Kane are the only people that scored, I think, over 4 goals over a certain period of time, apart from Gareth Bale, obviously, who's no longer at the club. Mm-hmm. So it just shows that they do rely on those. And obviously, if you've got one of them in Harry Kane that isn't firing, and you're relying too much on one player, and that's never a recipe for success.
You got Mura as well. But the over-reliance on Mura, and to be fair, he's a decent player, but the problem with him is his consistency.
Yeah,
that's another thing.
He is a very, he's very good player, definitely Mura, but he's obviously, as the statistics sort of say, he's not a consistent goal scorer. Mm-hmm. And they do need, as I say this nearly every single week, that every team needs goals in their ranks. And unfortunately for Tottenham, they don't necessarily have that. There was nothing, I know we're getting to the game specifically, but Manchester United, albeit playing a back 5, Spurs didn't have a single shot on target, and that just shows that Spurs really are lacking and impotent up front currently, and so he's a bit of a victim of that. But I think overall, in my opinion, if I'd been one of the Spurs board, I would have sacked him. And that's just because my standards are very high, and that's why I've been Ollie out for quite some time. So that's probably the answer to the question is that I would have sacked him. So I think it's the right decision.
Nathan, what do you think?
I think it was the right time for him to go. And I said right at the start of the season, this is going to go one of two ways. It's either going to be a massive success because you could just transfer it over from Wolves, play the same sort of system, and you can get them scoring. But there was something in my mind about his tactics and style of play that has hindered Wolves as well. And what I've seen a lot is that with Nuno, by the way, sorry if you can hear that, there's a plane taking off.
That's Nuno.
Yeah, that's Nuno right there. So with the way that Spurs play, obviously, or however Nuno has set it out, you see it all the time with Wolves, especially last season. That's what cost him his job at Wolves as well. He has one style of play and one tactic. It doesn't evolve, it doesn't switch, and it doesn't move. If plan A doesn't work, then he demands them to play plan A better. There's no secondary plan. If a key player gets injured in there or if he's missing something, then it just completely falls apart. And one thing I think Tottenham have been massively missing as well is that sort of playmaker and something to drive it forward, supply the balls into your Sons, your Moras, your Kanes. Well, not so much Kane because you can clearly tell he doesn't want to be there, and not selling him in the summer was a complete mistake. But they need that real quality midfielder there that can string it all together, link it together, get them supplying, and then they'll be a way to go.
Stephen, obviously you remember Nuno. He obviously gifted Arsenal a nice lot to win in the North London derby. So I'm sure you're very devastated to see Nuno leave Spurs.
I don't know what they were complaining about. He was doing absolutely brilliantly. 10 games in. I mean, what more do you want? They need to trust the process a bit more.
So,
to be fair,
do you expect me to come out with anything different as an Arsenal fan?
That's what I'm asking. I'm sure you're absolutely devastated.
To be fair, with Nuno and Wolves, what you got to remember is he was just handed an unlimited transfer budget there, broke records in the Championship and everything. Comes to Spurs, what money has he had to spend at the end of the day? He is a manager that needs to spend money to get his way. He's just like some of the other names in the list as well, and it was just a match-made-in disaster for him, unfortunately. And to be honest, where he gets his new job now, I don't know.
It was the wrong appointment, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The thing I would say, the thing I would also say too is like when you're playing Eric Dyer centre back week in week out, what more are you really asking for? It's Eric fucking Dyer. Like the guy's actually awful.
Yeah,
I mean to be honest, like Nuno. It's clear to see that Nuno and Tottenham just don't fit. Simple as that. The manager just doesn't fit the club, and you could tell straight away. And you could tell straight away, literally after I think it was even with the Spurs game, the players just weren't interested. It's the first time I've ever seen Spurs not up for a game, and a North London derby at that. So, and that's why probably made us look a little bit too good. But yeah, that you could tell they're just not in it. They're not interested. They're not buying into his tactics. They're not buying into his style of play. They just want him gone. So,
I'll ask you, Reece. What do you think about Nuno? I know you think Nuno's a good manager, but do you think it's right to be sacked after 10 Premier League games, especially after some of the teams that they did play?
Yeah. Yeah, I like Nuno as like in terms of like his management style. I just like his approach to football, and it might not always be exciting, but it's aggressive and it's actually very direct. My problem is why it wasn't working at Spurs, because if you look at their like what the players they've got, like Højbjerg, Ndombele, just in midfield, for example, you've got Son for his pace, Moura. They brought in Brian Gill. Like, you actually think about it, like there's players in there that actually suit the style and the system. But I look at where things have went from the summer to now, and it's just not showed enough for Nuno and for Spurs. I did say at the start of the season, I did agree with Nathan, like in terms of it can go two ways. I was also on the same point of view. I said he'll either succeed in his manner or succeed or he will get the sack. I didn't expect him to be the second manager to be sacked at all in the Premier League. I didn't expect it. But the one thing I did sort of expect was how he's going to change. And the one thing he should have done is sold Harry Kane.
Yeah.
Harry Kane is done. Like people laughed at me when I called him. Like I said, he wasn't world class. I ain't changing my opinion. A world class player turns up even when their team's in dire situations. If he'd been in Man City and he was performing, then you would go, yeah, he's still world class. But you look at him now; he's just a very good striker. Like he downed tools massively. And I understand like a manager's going to have to take the brunt of it. Doesn't matter what job you're in. If your team's performing badly, the manager's going to get it. But fuck me, Harry Kane's supposed to be the main man at Tottenham, and he completely undermined his manager. And all fairness, fuck him. He should have been sold. Like he's a disgrace. And
I mean,
some of those players are.
I mean, you look back to the North London derby.
He was a ghost.
He was supposed to be captain of that side, and actually Aubameyang turned up more than Harry Kane, and everyone keeps moaning at Aubameyang not for turning up. I do it all the time, moan about it. He never turned up, but
you're right.
And Kane never turned. And the only thing he did all game actually was slip, and also gave Saka an assist. That's the only thing he did all game.
Like, there's going to be a mental question about it. There's going to be a mental question about it. Is Harry Kane mentally in it? And I think we all agreed at the time is like in terms of the transfer situation, if Harry Kane's not in it during August, then you don't play him, because then that means we'll see where his loyalty lies. Obviously, he done the stupid fiasco of his tweet saying, "Oh, I'm here for you guys. I'm here for all that." Stop talking bollocks. As soon as January comes around, if Man City or whoever comes calling, you'll be sniffing the contracts.
Yeah,
like they're glue, mate. You'll be gone. Don't get me wrong, Harry Kane's a team player. Like, I think on his day, you want Harry Kane in your team. But right now,
that might change though.
Right now, you do not want him. And this is right, it was a panic. And I look at where they're going, Spurs, and I honestly don't know. If they bring in Conte, which makes me sick, I don't know if it's been confirmed yet, but if they bring in Conte, I will be sick. Because that's a deal.
Done.
Like Tottenham haven't won a trophy since 2008. And I think Conte's going to turn it around. It won't be the league title. I don't think he'll win the league with Spurs. But the FA Cup and the League Cup, one of them's going.
Reece, do you think you feel sick? Did you feel how I feel?
Mate, you at least get the FA Cups.
No, mate. Like I'm feeling 10 times worse, mate. I can't stand this. Like, especially as
I don't know where they go now.
I actually want Antonio Conte here, and this is I did a whole stream about an hour 40 minutes long, and you still had fans coming in the stream saying, "Oh, Arteta's still the one." And I'm like, no, right. Conte's there. If he can go to Spurs, he can come to Arsenal. Simple as that. Car crash the thing. We did it with so many other times. Do it. So, but I mean, it says here like Conte's waiting to sign as Tottenham manager. Matter of final details. Contract until June 2023 confirmed and discussed now. Antonio's camp and Spurs board talking about final clauses in order to announce the deal. Which is pretty much done.
Bring that back up.
That was 2 hours ago.
Yeah. The difference is though, Harry Kane's coming from 27, 28 years old.
He's in his prime.
Yeah, like Harry Kane's in his prime. He's got no excuse to be a slow starter. He's got no excuse. Sancho, this is his first season in the Premier League. I think in terms of starting slow, he deserves the time. Harry Kane deserves no time. He doesn't deserve it.
I also disagree that Sancho's been a slow starter as well. I think that's mainly due to...
Ollie hasn't been giving him the chance.
He's been benched half the time.
See, when he's played, he's actually been effective. He's just not had the proper minutes to get himself like a goal or assist, and it's a shame because he's a quality player.
Yeah,
he's just not good enough. But if you actually think about slow starters, Harry Kane, of all the players in the Premier League for his position, does not deserve that tagline. Like, I know you'll probably have your own different opinion, and that's yours, and I respect that. But Harry Kane is a slow starter. That doesn't even belong in the same sentence, because that guy, the amount of goals he's scored for Tottenham since 2014, he has no right
In terms of Nuno's replacement, it is going to be Antonio Conte. That's pretty much nailed on. Nathan, is Conte going to make Spurs a team that you're afraid of, or do you think him and Daniel Levy is going to be a car crash?
I really don't know on this one, especially considering the stubbornness of Levy as well. And if you look at Conte's last few jobs, he's had to get his own players in for it to work. I have doubts about it, but he'll probably make use of what he's got already because it is good enough. But in the long run, I don't think it's going to work.
George, what do you think?
So I agree with Nathan in the sense that in the long run, I don't think it will work. But I think in the short term, which is really, I mean, Spurs ultimately have already dropped the ball once when they sacked Mourinho 6 days, whatever it was, before a League Cup final. When
6 days, yeah.
The most, probably the biggest serial winner of the last 20 years in final situations, Jose Mourinho, and you decide it's just one of the worst decisions I've ever seen, particularly as obviously Reece has alluded to, that Spurs haven't had a trophy since, or at least other than an Audi Cup, I think, since 2000.
That doesn't count.
Audi Cup,
which was the League Cup. But I feel like Spurs have got a real good chance now of winning some silverware this season. Obviously, only 3 games left in the League Cup, in the quarterfinals already. When Conte takes over, so I feel like Spurs will win some silverware, and I think for their fans that'll be a really good thing to do because ultimately, I think not only that, but I think they've only won 2 trophies since 1991.
That's right.
So they ultimately the silverware is the main goal for them, and I think they'll achieve that. I think in the long run it probably won't work, but obviously what I would say is that from what I understand, they've given Conte an 18-month contract anyway, and that's relatively short term anyway. So that's that. Short-term success, I think Conte will deliver, and I also think I remember, if you recall last week, we sort of said, do we think there's another team that might make the top 4? Obviously, at that juncture, we thought, and then Spurs, I think, might be now with Conte. They really do move into almost, well, definitely one of the forerunners, and I don't want to say until we see how Conte gets them going, because you have to think about the fact that I still think Manchester United squad is far, far better than Spurs, but it's how much does a truly world-class manager make it, and it does, unfortunately. So it really is going to be a balancing act, but Spurs really do. Top 4 becomes a real good probability for them, and so does silverware this season. So I think in short term, a success, potentially in the long term, not one, but Spurs won't care if they win a trophy this season.
Stephen, you disagree?
As well. There's one other thing we're overlooking before you go to Stephen. There's one other thing we're overlooking. Spurs director of football is Paratici, and Paratici is the one that hired Conte, and Paratici and Conte are the reason that Juventus are the juggernaut that went on won the amount of league titles they won in a row. It all started through Conte's vision and Paratici bringing in like this talent with him. If it hadn't been for those two, Juventus would have won 9 league titles in a row.
The difference is that he won't be given that full control because Daniel Levy will still have the final say over everything. So
and he won't give him any money either.
From what I've seen in terms of like Spurs supporters trust and all that, is in terms of like Paratici is the one that'll have say on transfers. Like Levy will just supply like the money and all that. Paratici is the director of football. He's going to have the work in with Conte. I think the worst thing is that's control. That's the difference. Like, that's the reason why he's went there and he's not come to United. It's because of that control factor.
So, what do you think, Stephen?
I think for that exactly that reason. I also think is that if bringing Conte, don't forget Conte rejected them for in the summer, right? Because they wouldn't give him the funds. So what is it now?
Also the really funny thing is that Daniel Levy didn't let Antonio Conte have 8 of his own coaches that like he wanted to.
Yeah, that as well. That along that as well. So if he's giving him away his own coaches, I bet you they've also discussed about the fact that you're going to give him something to spend in the transfer market. None of this like 50, 60, 70 odd millionaire that you've given to others. I think this time they've decided. I think Antonio Conte will not have gone there if he knows he is going to have a transfer budget to work on, and he can work with, along with the squad that he's got, along with the squad that they've got. I don't think Conte would have bothered because, like if he could see a short-term project that he can get trophies out of, he'll go and take it. And if Tottenham right now, as we quite easily said, there's gaps in their squad that they need to fill. and the only way they can do that is by spending a truckload of money. And Conte's not going to go there unless they don't have a budget.
Yep, that's fair enough. Yeah, Pete does think has dug out to answer your question. They said they can't speak English. Conte's English is actually alright, but he studies goes. I think we're free. I hate those interviews. Even when we won the league, I couldn't listen to Antonio Conte speak. So we'll move on to another team, and there's already been debate in the chat, so that's where we're going to move on. We'll move on to Norwich City, who did lose to Leeds United 2-1. Yesterday. Now, Nathan, I know Nathan, I know you've got something prepared, so go ahead. Let's see what you have to say.
Right. So first of all, out of all of the games this season that Norwich actually have a chance of winning, it was this one, and they completely and utterly bottled it. I mean, everyone knows how much I hate Leeds for obvious reasons, but I'm sorry. This was just
can we just reverse that fixture? Why we three hate Leeds?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, what everyone hates Leeds, but apart from that, the one thing I want to highlight with this team is how on earth can you get worse when you get promoted? That's what I want to. That's what I want to know. I've got both of the teams on my second screen here. And even towards the end of last season, bearing in mind when they got promoted from the Championship, they had some absolutely horrifying results. But looking at it, it was a strong team for the Championships. Aarons, Quintilla, Ken McLean, Oliver Skip, Buendia, Cantwell, good. Absolutely good and solid squad. Until you realise that towards the end of last season, some of their results. Drawing to Barnsley. What other ones do we have here? Drawing to Blackburn, drawing to Preston North End as well. Some absolutely shocking results. Watford doing the double over them as well. Poor. And then you move on to the team that played yesterday. You're playing Obamandendele, who, bearing in mind, is a centre-back at left-back. What's all that about? You have Ozan Kabak, who is massive. He's basically a massive cheese string in defence. You have Norman and Kevin McLean, who wouldn't get into half the Championship sides. Where's the strength in that side? Going from a 4-2-3-1 to a 4-4-2 with Teemu Pukki and Josh Sargent up front.
It's 5-3 as well. It's 5-2.
According to this, it isn't. Believe it or
no,
not.
They're playing 5 at the back now.
Yeah, they're playing 5, but they start as a 4 and they transition into a back 3. That's what they're doing in games. They transition to back 3. It doesn't matter what they transition to. They transition from a club I used to respect in terms of in the league to a club I absolutely despise and wish they didn't.
I completely agree. I mean, the one thing I'd like to say as well is, considering the weakness in the team lineup as well, look at the bench. You have Billy Gilmore, Brandon Williams, Angus Gunn, Adam Ida, Tzolis on there. Why aren't these players starting when you've got the likes of Kevin McLean, Norman, who's been absolutely shocking, a centre-back at right-back, and Josh Sargent and Teemu Pukki up front, who can barely save their lives.
Daniel Farkas probably came out low and says that he's not there to he's not there to improve and take care of low knees that the club has. So that he's the thing that he has a responsibility to play Brandon Williams and Billy Gilmore, because it's not his job to improve them or make them better players.
But at the end of the day, they're better than what they've got currently, and I don't get why he's persisting with players that didn't even get into their team last season.
Because he's a stripper manager, and I'm sick of saying the same thing about him every week.
Do you know what, then? If that's not his responsibility, he might as well just hang up his boots right now and just walk out the door.
Exactly.
I mean, he's a manager for God's sake. Like,
you're right.
Like, play the players that are good enough. Like, whether you're in charge of the progression or not, you are there to keep Norwich in the league. Simple as that. So you play the players that are going to be good enough. And if those players that you're playing aren't good enough at the minute, why the hell are you still playing them? Get rid of them.
Exactly.
Right? Drop them. Right? Until they know they've got to play better. And part of me also thinks is that, like, and I know, Doris, I live north at Suffolk border, so I know a little bit about Norwich's football. And
it's shit.
For me, it is shit. And I would also say as well is that Dean Smith, instead of actually spending money on his on a football club, rather actually more spends on a cookery book. right? She actually needs to stop. Get her face out of the kitchen and actually start looking at the problems at the club.
Easy. You could get a lot. You could get a lot of shit
sorry.
like that.
Yeah. The thing I will say as well though is
Get her head out of her ass. That's what probably better to say.
I completely forgot what I was going to say, but I think this has got to be one of the first sides ever that has come up from the Championship that have got worse. That is literally thinned down their squad for when they've been promoted. I'm sorry, but that is absolutely ludicrous because even Derby didn't do that. And Derby were even. They had 3 more points than this monstrosity at the moment.
Oh god.
George, here's a question for you. All right. So obviously, what do you think Daniel Farke actually does on the training ground in terms of coaching his football team?
Nothing at all. Nothing at all. Ultimately, I mean, as Nathan sort of pointed out, Norwich are now in a worse position than Derby were at the same stage in 07-08. So it's got significantly fewer points than they did at this stage, and I think there is a definite possibility of them recording the lowest ever points total. And we you almost thought that Derby, no one could ever beat that because it was so few, having only 11 points. But at this stage of the season, we're obviously now slightly over a quarter of the season gone. It does look extremely likely that they are going to do that. So yeah, it's just. I mean, obviously, it's going to be an easy 6 points. Hopefully, well, let's hope so. Anyway, when Manchester United play them, because we all know that suddenly when United come, they'll be playing out their skins like prime Barcelona.
Don't start. I don't want to see that in my head. I don't want that vision in my head.
But ultimately, I mean, obviously, it's good. Just as an aside, so just to speak about obviously the Leeds Norwich game, obviously superb goal by Rafinha, but also it's nice to see, because not only because he's not playing for Manchester United any longer, but it's nice to see that the Flash has recorded a couple of assists as well. So it's good to see that he's thriving as well, because we obviously wish him all the best from afar. Yeah, obviously, ultimately, Norwich are just an easy team to beat, unfortunately, for every team, and just an absolute disgrace to the Premier League, really. When they offer nothing,
It also shows how bad Arsenal are if we're struggling to score goals against them. We're just about to score a goal against this lot, and
I will say though as well, when they do get relegated, I think that Daniel Farke will get sacked, but because this would just be embarrassing, even though Delia will probably keep him anyway. But the thing is, with the squad that they have, they're not going to build on it like last time, and the tactics just won't work again. It's an older squad, and they're just not going to have the strike force to cope with it, and they're going to be back to bang average mid-table championship side like they have been ever since the 2012-13 days when they're actually decent in the Prem. They're going to go down. They're just going to rot in mid-table for years, and then I don't know where they go from there. They might even do what they did 10 years ago and go down to League One for a few years.
We know what the Norwich plan is. Like it's been the same plan for years. It's get relegated, get the more money you can get, because you get more money getting relegated than winning the Premier League, which is embarrassing. Get the relegation money, win the championship, take the shite you get from that, 'cause you get hardly anything, go straight back down. Like that's literally the Norwich way. We're not here to play good football. We're just here to pocket money. And in all fairness, a club like that should be banned from Premier League football, because that's not ambition. That's just scrounging, basically benefit cheats. Like we're not here for that. Like that's what Norwich are. They're just scrounging clowns. And I've never seen a team so shit since Derby. And I will not change my opinion on it. They are the worst Premier League team since Derby, and they're going to get less points than Derby. And there's people that think they're going to get more. There's people that think Derby are going to get Norwich are going to get 20, 25 points this year. No, they're not. No, they're fucking not.
All I'll say is I know, Josh, that you exclude yourself from this because you put Brentford bottom, but
that's because Josh is insane.
I think that anyone who put Norwich just even above bottom, or even actually put them to stay up, is absolutely deluded.
I said Norwich would be.
out
I
of
said
touch
Norwich
with
would be
reality.
confirmed relegated by Christmas, and they've already proved my
Yeah.
point. They're already going to be confirmed relegated very shortly. Like, they are shite.
They've
Like,
been
they are
confirmed
gone.
relegated in October, and that says it all. Let
I
alone
know.
Christmas.
I've got
They're a
some.
disgrace.
I've got some random breaking news that might play some Rangers fans. Michael Stewart has been suspended by the BBC for condemning their comments against Rangers fans. So Michael Stewart, quite a well-known pundit on the BBC, by the BBC company, has been suspended by the BBC for anti-Ranger comments. So yeah,
the British could have finally done something right for a change. About fucking time that we cunt gets.
Michael Stewart's been suspended.
I know you don't like that. Sorry, Doug. I know you don't like that word, but thank fuck that cunt is now being banned. He is him and that Sutton. I hate the two of them. Like all they do is just find ways to just make derogative, defamatory comments towards Rangers, and it's about time that prick gets banned. Because if you look at his comments for the past year and a half towards Rangers, he's absolutely disgusting. Like, it doesn't matter what the situation is, whether we win, lose, he's violent. Michael Stewart. He's a clown, mate. Once you see his face, he looks like Gary Monk, but uglier. Like, that's just how stupid he is. Like, he is honestly one of the worst human beings in media.
I'm just going to ask you one question, and I want you to all just to basically say your one-worded answer just out loud. Will Daniel Farke be sacked before the end of the season?
No.
Nobody saying yes. I see. It says a lot that you don't sack a manager who I think the players clearly have no trust in. But anyway, moving on to another Premier League game. It's Manchester United beating Tottenham Hotspur 3-0. So we've already spoken about Spurs. Let's move on to Manchester United. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer changes the formation. They play a 5-3-2, and they looked organised. They played good counter-attacking football. They created chances. They scored 3 goals. But does this paper over the cracks, George? Obviously, you're happy with Manchester United winning, but do you feel like it has a long-term repercussion because everyone knows that Solskjaer just simply isn't good enough?
Well, overall, obviously, yes, Ollie isn't good enough. I've been saying that for quite some time. Surprised he got an extra match, and this will buy him a lot of time now. As another candidate in Antonio Conte looks likely to go to Spurs. I think overall we saw some excellent play from Manchester United. I think Varane coming back was integral. He was sort of marshalling that defence superbly from the centre. Obviously his pace as well really helped out. I think Aaron Wan-Bissaka was superb. Obviously at full-back, I think he was my man of the match as well. I think he was exemplary, not only just going forward, but also obviously as we know defensively, there's not a better, in my opinion, anyway, it's not a better full-back in the league defensively than Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Superb block off from Son, obviously when he ran through past Lindelof and Maguire. But overall, it seemed like Manchester United had learned the basics of football, that everyone was behind the ball, everyone was making sure they were in shape and formation, they were all staying quite close together, which was a total opposite from what happened against Liverpool and in other matches where we've been wide open this season. So it wasn't necessarily just the personnel alterations which were important, it was more the fact that everyone was more structured, more organised, and that really did have massive benefits. And when you've got two world-class legendary strikers, two legends of the game that will live long into the histories of the game in Cavani and Ronaldo up top, you're always going to have the opportunity to score goals, and it's a real masterclass. Obviously, Ronaldo's goal was, as I sort of said, was universe class. It was that good. He had literally no window of error that he could have had on that volley. It was absolutely sublime from Bruno's ball. And Cavani's goal is just another lesson on the movement. But if for any young kid who's watching, Cavani's movement as soon as Bruno gets that ball, as soon as Bruno wins back that ball, was absolutely exceptional. There's no other word for it. It was ridiculous. So he literally makes 2 or 3 different moves, and then the final move is the perfect one in between the two defenders. And phenomenal finish from him. And obviously Rashford completes the win. A lot of it you could say was the fact that Spurs are atrocious, which obviously we've gone into great depth over already. But I think from Manchester United's point of view, we have seen a good. I think this is a formation we can take forward. The only shame really is that Cavani and Ronaldo can't really play too many games, and I think beyond them, for me, they are our 2 best forwards, despite their age. I think just because of the quality that they have on the ball and just their positional sense and awareness to sniff out chances. So, and the other thing is obviously is that we don't know. You can never guess at what Ollie's thinking either. So he's probably going to change this formation. But for me, probably you should try and stick with it, and you should try and bring players in now and then. The only issue now I think is that if one of our obviously with the back five, you need a lot of defenders in the squad, and I think that obviously with Phil Jones being an injury walking, and with Eric Bailly maybe exactly the same, has got his own injury problems, that might be an issue as well if he's looking to move this forward. But really, really good win. And like I said, there were some amazing performances. I also thought just the final sort of point as well is that Bruno Fernandes I thought was absolutely phenomenal as well. There was a part in the match where he just showed. I think he works in this system a lot more as well. I think he's not necessarily doesn't have to necessarily do as many of the defensive duties either again. But when he does, obviously there was a real chance of a breakaway which he stopped excellently with a sliding tackle. But I think Bruno's harrying is one of the best sort of harriers or pressers that we've got, and obviously it led to the goal in the second one. But I think Bruno was really, really good again for work rate. And what I would say is I think that the main differences were from this game and the Liverpool game was that, as I said, everyone was organised, well drilled and in place, and also everyone worked hard. That was the main thing. Everyone worked hard as a unit, and it's very simple game football. Obviously, if you work hard and you've got the talent, you're going to win games, and that's what Manchester United have been missing is people actually working hard and working for the team, which we finally saw against Spurs.
So there was one thing that was documented. So for a lot of people who kind of don't really know, that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has always been kind of self as a man manager. He doesn't actually do the coaching on the pitch. He's given it to Mike Phelan and McKenna. It was reported that this week Ole Gunnar Solskjaer did do the training on the pitch. He set up the whole team. He did a lot of the training. So I'm actually got a nice bit of a screenshot stuff. So this was the shape that Manchester United ended up played against Liverpool, which. You guys can tell me what it is, if it's like a 4-3-3 or a really, really, really awful design 4-4-2. So this is when
4-2-4.
This was McKenna's training under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer when they changed to the 3 at the back. This is what Manchester United shape was. There's a very, very, very big difference in the organisation and the setup of the two teams. So Reece, should Solskjaer maybe be doing the coaching a bit more himself?
I'd rather it be elite coaches altogether, but in all fairness, like that's the difference is when a manager does it, a manager sees firsthand what needs to be done rather than just the coaches. If he's not watching, you can't see it until you're on the pitch and then, well, you see the results. But a manager should be more involved with training sessions and all that. That's the most important thing is that you actually see things. I'm not going to load it all down to a masterclass, but I will say is like the difference is it was actually organised for a change. And that's what's been lacking is organisation. How long it's going to last, I honestly do not know. But there are ways we can deal with this system. Like if it's going to be a 3-5-2, use them against the likes of Chelsea, use them against the likes of Liverpool, Man City. And then the lesser teams, like your Burnleys, your Arsenals and all that, use a 3-4-3. Like at least you'll get width. I'm just kidding, I had to put that in there. Arsenal's still a big club. You use the width. Like use a 3-4-3, you'll get width out of that, and you can allow the wing backs to just bomb forward, and you've got your midfield. Whichever way you do it, it's not a big deal. I would rather stick to this system for the long period of time because it gets the best out of the likes of Shaw, Wan-Bissaka, maybe Telles. If you put him in the system, I would rather that way rather than a back four. Because at the minute, I look at our organisation in the back four, and it's not organised. But in a back three, it looks more comfortable. And in terms of your original question, should the manager be on the field like in training sessions more? Yeah, he should because that's his job. He gets paid to actually do that. So he should be there more often, actually seeing what needs to be done. Otherwise, he's going in blind, and we've already seen what happens when you go in blind. You're unorganised.
That's the thing.
And you're buggered.
Because I've seen like in Ollie infants from the past, they've said so many times is like, well, it's the coaching staff. It's that the coaching staff's training him, and he's only giving the instructions to the coaching staff, and it's down to them. And I'm like, yeah, but he's the manager. Hang on, if we don't train well, we don't perform on the pitch. Like take it for an Arsenal point of view here. If we don't perform well on the pitch and don't perform our tactical duties on the pitch, right? We look at the manager. We don't go start blaming the coaching staff. We don't just start blaming Steve Bold or anyone else. We look
Agreed.
at Arteta and start calling him out. No, so why is it now that Man United, the biggest club in England, is but the manager's it's got nothing to do with him. He's too busy focusing on the other club, right? But then again, you all sit there and go, oh, but Fergie was such a great tactician. He was such a great manager and been able to run the club and train the players and get miracles out of players that are no good. Well, if that's the case, then why isn't it you're now including that for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer?
Because he's in the same context. I'm not leaving him out at all. I'm not leaving him out in that context.
It's the same job.
Yeah, I'm not leaving him out in that context. Back to my point, I'm not leaving him out in the context of blame. But in terms of he has said it before, he doesn't run training sessions, and I'm thinking, well, if that's the case, then if you don't want to run them, then fine. But if you're actually going to let somebody else run them, then make it elite, modern coaches that are actually up to date with the game, not somebody who, with all due respect to Mike Phelan, is a legend of Man United, but he's not in it anymore. It's past that time, and it's not you need to move on. And if you don't, you're going to get stuck.
Had his own try managing.
He has, and I've got all the respect in the world for Mike Phelan, but we need modern elite coaches that are going to run with it. Otherwise, you're going to fall behind, and that's the difference. Is at least Sir Alex Ferguson throughout his tenure from '86 to 2013, at least he actually knew at the right time when to freshen up his coaching staff, and he didn't bring in weak coaches. He brought in the best at the time, and he was constantly refreshing up to his last team. He was refreshing. So I'm like, if Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, I said it last week and I've said it everywhere else I've been, if he wants to manage this club onwards, fine, but have the best coaching staff out there. You need the best to run with. If not, you're going to fuck up. And it's been the exact same constantly. And that's why it's going to be on his neck for that, plus poor performances, not having the best in class and the poor performances. And having repetitive mistakes he doesn't learn from. That's the three keys to Ollie. It's the three keys that always gets wrong.
This is an interest. This is a bit of a weird stat. This came from a Man United correspondent. He goes to every United game. He said before the Spurs game, over the last 5 games, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer stood up 6 times compared to McKenna's constant touchline activity per game. Against Spurs, McKenna did not do any instructions and sat in his seat the whole game while Solskjaer was the one giving the instructions. So it does show that Solskjaer may have took things into his own hand.
That's fine. Just very quickly on this. That's fine. But why is it taken? First of all, why has it taken 3 years? Second of all, the thing is on this formation thing, which we might have stumbled on, which might be brilliant. It might be something that we can go forward with. Mm-hmm. The last time apparently we played a back 3 was February 2020. Before this, so that's before anyone even thought COVID. Everyone thought COVID was a cold or whatever, and it was before anyone had even heard of pandemic or anyone had heard of isolation. So yet again, it annoys me so much that he's been given so long. And he's made so many errors over and over again, and now he's stumbled upon something, and now he's been given an extra chance. And mark my words, he's not going to succeed. He just won't. Unfortunately speaking, we're going to mess up again. And Conte was a good candidate that we've now lost out on. And who's to say that in the next few months, when he eventually, he might never. I've got these visions of him having a sort of Gandalf beard and still being wheeled out as a manager of United.
Imagine that happens to him. That would be Tottenham would officially kill Conte. If you actually think about the irony is, Conte's a manager that could turn Tottenham around, but Tottenham's the one club in football that could kill Conte.
Yeah,
it says it all. I think you're right, and this is the thing where I look at, and you're right in terms of not succeeding. You're not wrong. Is he was playing his best football this way a year plus ago, and it took him so long to get it to actually revert. And I'm like, it makes no sense. If something's working, for fuck's sake, stick with it. You can make little tweaks in games. Although to be fair, we've said that for fuck knows how long, and the closest tweak you can get is a 90-minute substitution. But end of the day, I think there's so many things that can be blamed on, and it's not just he has to get the brunt of it as well. the coaching staff get the brunt because they're just not good enough. Some of the players he picks just isn't right. And then the worst of all is direction, is where this club actually wants to go. Like direction from up, down. It's just nothing there. Like it's like walking through like mirrors. Like you're walking from like a mirror glass house at a circus. Like there's your reflection. Oh, this is what I want, but I'm actually looking at the cunt on the left because that's me right there. That's not actually what I want to be. It's the guy on the right hand side who looks like he wants to succeed. There's no clear vision, there's no direction, and I'm like, what exactly do we want to be? Do we want to be a dominant powerhouse that we used to be, or do we just want to keep sailing slow? And I honestly think it's the latter, not the former. And as a Man United fan, it makes me sick.
My final point about Man United before we have to move on, because we've got a couple more games to cover in about 20 minutes. Do you think the 5-3-2 system is the way going forward? But you have to think you got Sancho and Rashford and Greenwood who may suffer from the change of formation because there's no wingers in this. So do you think that it's more of a change? Like he changes it between like a 3-4-3 when you have wingers, or do you think he'll play? Or do you think working with Ronaldo, Cavani, and Greenwood as two strikers the whole time? What do you think? How do you work around that? Because you can't leave Rashford and Sancho on the bench, surely.
Well, I think we are going to go to a back four tomorrow because Lindelof picked up a knock in training, so he's not travelled. So it looks like it's going to be a back four against Atlanta tomorrow, which, to be fair, I don't think is that big a problem. The long term, I think, it'll be a back four tomorrow. But in all fairness, though, I don't think it's a bad idea playing a 3-5-2 as the starting system. Like you can use, like I said a couple minutes ago, you could use Cavani and Ronaldo against the bigger teams together, and then you can bring on the likes of Rashford, Sancho, and Greenwood, and you can mix up. You can go 3-4-3 that way and bring the width in. That's not a problem. But I think against certain teams, if we're going to play with the back three against certain teams, I want us to use the width in that sense and use the 3-4-3. And then against the likes of Chelsea, City, Liverpool, use the 3-5-2, get us compact. That's not a problem because we saw what happened when we've done it before, and that's the thing. But it's not in terms of how long sustainable it's going to be. I honestly don't know. But in terms of what we saw at the weekend, certain players get the best out of this system than a back four. Wan-Bissaka's better in a back five than a back four. He's miles better.
Just very quickly on Greenwood, I think this will actually suit him more as well, just because obviously that was one of the names you mentioned. I think this will suit him more because
number 9.
He isn't a winger. One thing I have noticed, obviously, an amazing talent that he's going to be is that he's very selfish, which should probably hopefully be coached out of him. But he's very selfish, and that's what you want in a forward. But that's not something you want in a wide forward as often as Greenwood is, because it has caused us lots of problems. It's been one of the issues we've had this season so far as well with him. But what I would say is I think that Ollie is probably going to go back. I wouldn't mark my words on this as well. I think Ollie's probably going to go back sooner rather than later to a 4-2-3-1 again, which is his sort of like favoured formation. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't go back to that very shortly, sooner than anyone would think, and revert back to the same old mistakes again. And the final thing I would say, because I know you are right, we do have to move on, is that in terms of sort of alienating people, alienating players, he's got absolutely no qualms about doing that because Donny van de Beek has wasted 14, 15 months of his career doing absolutely nothing. Jadon Sancho's going exactly the same way as well over the last 2 or 3 months. So Ole Gunnar Solskjaer doesn't care about that. And that's fine if the club's doing well. But when the club isn't doing well and you're not picking these players or changing it up, that's when the questions need to be asked. And that's when all these players should be getting minutes, but they won't do. And unfortunately, that's going to continue as long as Ollie's here.
I do agree with one comment. Can you bring up Vicky's comment, which is the nothing worse than dry chicken? Vicky's comment. It's about, to be fair, there are some players, and I mentioned it before, there are some players that do play more than many that deserve it, and they aren't actually doing enough. And that's, to be fair, you could put your best team out and you can give them their jobs to do, but if they actually don't do anything, they just laze about, then frankly, you can't put that on management. That's down to them, not bothering their arse to work. But on the direction side of it as well is there's times where players must be given, rightly so, the blame. And then there's other times where the dugout must be blamed as well. And it seems to be the prerogative for people is just to automatically blame the dugout. But you got to remember, and I think that's fair. But there's times where you've got to call out your players and go, generally, what the hell are you doing? Are you actually bothering? Because you could put I hope we don't, but you could put a caretaker manager in front of these players, right, for like a couple of games, and you would see an automatic difference in their attitude. And I'm thinking that's the question: is it really just always the management that's to blame, or is it the little men you put in the pitch? You've got to actually look at that as well, though. It can't always be the same argument over and over again, because we've had the likes of Van Gaal, we've had David Moyes, we've had Jose Mourinho, and you look at some of those players that have played under all of them, it's been recurring themes. I'm not saying don't blame the management on this one. I'm not saying don't blame the management, but I'm just saying players have also. When do the players get held accountable for certain things? When does that
they do hold accountability as well. But one thing I would say is that it's the manager. For me, there's been a lot of times where Ole Gunnar Solskjaer does have his favourites. They will pick a lot, and it doesn't matter necessarily if they have a very, very poor game. They will still get played the next game, and that's what. There's no meritocracy with under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. So it's not only the fact that they still get picked, even if they haven't been performing well. It's also even worse for me. And actually, to be fair, both of them are equally shocking things. But the other thing I don't like is that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer never makes subs of these players. So, for example, Harry Maguire against Leicester was clearly unfit or was clearly having a terrible game. You didn't bring him off at all. And not only that, but also his comments after the game was to say that Maguire had a really good game and he'd really grown, or something like he'd really grown into the game. So like,
there was a meritocracy there. So I know it doesn't exist, but say, for example, there was a meritocracy there. Would that then come into question? I'm just on the basis of it.
We do need to move on.
You need to ask that. I know. I just want to get the answer to that question before we move on. I just want to say that meritocracy existed.
We do need to move on because we've got a couple of games. So we're going to come over to you to probably the upset of the weekend. Crystal Palace going to the Etihad, beating Manchester City 2-0. Now, first of all, to my question to you before we talk about the actual two teams, do you think it was a red card on Marc Laporte? Do you think it was a deserved red card of denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity?
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I do call this out a lot as well. It's like, for me, there's two red cards that are either yes or no's. If it's a denial opportunity, absolutely it's a red card if you're the last man. And then also the studs up one. My opinion, denial last man, red card.
So in terms of the actual game itself, Crystal Palace deserved to win, even when it was 11-11. Manchester City didn't really do anything to really spark much of an aspirational performance, but Patrick Vieira probably should have got a result at the Emirates, which I think Stephen would be in agreement with. He should have probably got the result at the Emirates. Like I said, didn't come up with the last minute goal. He goes to the Etihad, pretty much outdoes Pep Guardiola in his back garden. Crystal Palace, they look like a very good team. They've rebuilt rightly, and Patrick Vieira may be proving us all wrong. Who said we all of us kind of had question marks on, but he's proved us wrong so far, hasn't he?
Yeah, he definitely proved me wrong because of where I put them in the table as well. But yeah, I think especially we've seen a lot with Pep in the past against these certain teams where he sort of disrespected them and saying, "Oh, we can just sit back, we can rotate, and we can hang fire, and we should be able to win this easily." But clearly doesn't work for him. And then you have teams like Vieira and Palace will just go out and attack them, win the game, and then Pep will be there with egg on his face like he always has, because a manager has gone there with confidence, and that's what's happened to so many teams in the past. But yeah, it's one of those. Go on, mate.
Well, George, what do you think? It was a performance that I don't think anyone had Crystal Palace to win this game. They do love a wee trip to Manchester, it seems, if it's Old Trafford or Etihad. But not only did they win, but they actually outplayed City at their own game in terms of a quick attacking football. They were far better.
There were some, the goals that they scored were a couple of crackers in terms of, again, pressing City, winning it back, and that's really the way to, City have always got this sort of Achilles heel, haven't they? Where if a team does keep it tight and are very disciplined and then have quality, true potency up top, they will hurt Manchester City. And ultimately, obviously, I'm just going to bring this in here as well, Josh. You remember when we were having that argument about Mendy versus Ederson, and I was sort of saying as well that the one thing I said about Ederson was he's quite poor in terms of a shot stopper.
Yes.
On that first goal, that's the thing with Ederson, is that he doesn't face too many shots because obviously City have the ball most of the time. But when he does, he's absolutely atrocious. His positional sense and his actual shot stopping ability is terrible. And it's just, like I said, the only reason he's sort of there is because of his phenomenal distribution. But in terms of being an actual keeper with his hands, he's absolutely terrible. On that first goal was atrocious, and then obviously a great goal from Gallagher as well. That second one was an absolute cracker as well. But full marks for Palace. Great win, and obviously what that does do is it does mean that they're only 3 points ahead of us. With obviously next weekend a chance to hopefully go level with them on points, which would be quite amazing, really. But yeah, Man City are in a bit of problems here, but we all know that what tends to happen with them is that when it gets to sort of like from January onwards, sometimes they can be quite ruthless, and hopefully it's the sign of a real bad slump. But you never know with Man City. They're the team that can always go on that massive winning run, no matter how badly they sort of perform in the autumn.
Stephen, obviously you think Crystal Palace at the Emirates. Do you think this Crystal Palace team are better than what we all said they would be before a ball was kicked?
Yeah, I thought Vieira would do well there. I always thought he'd do well there. And maybe it's me being a little bit biased as an Arsenal fan, but he's proved everyone wrong, and a lot of people were saying that they're going to get relegated under because of the job that he had to do there. But here's the funny thing, and like you mentioned about how he got a draw against them, right? That's not a draw, that's a loss. By the way, don't count that as a draw. Last goal didn't happen. It's just that embarrassing. It's unreal when you get like your main football channel like jumping up and down celebrating the draw. It shows the mentality of our football fan base, doesn't it? But
sponsored by Pepsi Max.
Yeah, sponsored. But I mean, what Vieira's managed to do is something that Arteta's managed not been able to do in 20 months, which is a style of play, a formation, a lineup, a plan B, and a way of getting around teams and adapting for each game. So, and we've spent 20 months on Arteta and we've got nowhere with that one. And I'm supposed to trust the process. Yeah.
Just very quickly, Reece. Very quick answer. Do you think this is what we're just going to see with City over the season with no number 9 on the pitch?
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much, yeah. I just don't see a layer of consistency with them without a number 9. But people are going to say, "Oh, but he won the league last year without a number 9." Yeah, well, I had 8 hours sleep last night, but it doesn't mean I'm going to get 8 hours sleep tonight, does it? So, like, I don't see any real consistency with them at all. Like, they need a striker.
For just for anybody who, I've got some other breaking news. George's favorite drink is Coke or Armchair. Just breaking news, just for anyone who's interested in that. And let's move on to your team. Move on to Arsenal, or beating Leicester City, and what was probably some were saying this was Arsenal's best performance of the season. Stephen, what did you think of the performance against Leicester City?
It was good for 30 minutes. And then the second half, it was more. The second half was just like, I'm surprised Leicester didn't draw it back to 2-2. To be honest, I think they deserved a point out of that game. I mean, Ramsdale, that save and that free kick was, I'm sorry, that's save of the season. And everyone wanted, and to all the Arsenal fans that wanted to ridicule him when he first turned up, what are you saying now? Like,
he'll still get relegated to his next club.
Yeah, it won't be Arsenal. We have to be moved on. But like, he's doing what's been asked of him, and he's doing it very well, and he's doing it a lot better than what Leno is. So I can't have any
He's
complaints
done decent
there.
for you guys. I'll give you that. I'll give you that credit. I mean, I don't know how many times Nathan could probably tell me the amount of times I actually bashed Ramsdale because I called him I called him, and I quote, the worst goalkeeper to ever play in, like, I've ever seen play football.
And
I still stand by it. But I'll give him this for what he's done recently. I'll give him credit. He's actually done.
Yeah,
he's done well as of late. I'll give him that serious credit. But in all fairness, if you just want to go and challenge like down the line, is he really the number one to do it? I don't think so.
No, but
for now, in terms of right now, building this team up, and then you get somebody better in charge. At least that's somebody stable. Because
of course not. But the problem is we're sitting here saying that. And here's the thing that they're supposed to tell me that these are Arteta's signings. Where I said, if that's what Arteta can do with the 150 mil he's got, right, then he should be walked out the door straight away. Like, this Project Youth. I don't want a team in 4 years' time, right? If you may not notice, we've got issues with our club now. Right?
You want a team that can challenge and build at the same time. You want to have the mix of both. That's what you really want.
If you're going to get young talent, fine. We can get loads of young talent.
Have experience, good quality experience.
We need players now. And we didn't get Uwar because apparently he's 1 year out the bracket. 1 year older out the bracket. That's the reason. Right?
I think you've got quite a strong first 11. I mean, obviously not necessarily as strong as some of the other teams, but I think it's just that past that. I think just past that. I think your overall squad is terrible. That's the issue.
Look, if you give that to any decent manager, we would be in a European slot. I've not got any problem with that.
Quite possibly.
So at the minute, he's not doing enough with that squad, right? There's certain things with that squad that are terrible. That midfield, like every time I watch it, it does an imitation of Casper the Ghost. It disappears. It literally disappears. It's like Moses parting the sea whenever it's like a team wants to counterattack on us. So for me, that's our main issue, and that's been our main issue for a while now. It's been on under Arteta. But apparently we don't need to go get any midfielders because apparently to Edu we've got Granit Xhaka, right? And we've got Lokonga.
I think Lokonga's been decent for you guys. Actually, I think he has been.
Lokonga's been decent, but again, he's not enough. He's 21. He's 22 years old. You can't expect him to do that. Right? And
no, of course not. I'm not saying that. But I think what he's done so far, I think he's actually been quite decent for you guys. I've only watched 2 or 3 games this season. When it's been that bad, he's been all right from what I've seen.
Yeah, but when you've seen that Palace game, and then you've got Arsenal fans standing outside the ground saying, "Oh, we miss Granit Xhaka. So our midfield's that bad. We now miss Granit Xhaka."
I'm
supposed to. And
that's the funny thing is fans that say that.
But the thing is, people are supposed to expect me to back this. Yeah,
you
right.
I think you look at the good core squad. I think the last time me and you spoke, I think I said I like some of the young core squad you've got. I said I liked Martinelli, I like Saka, Smith Rowe. Like I'm not particularly keen on him, but I think he's a good player for you guys.
Saka's overworked.
Lokonga, he's a good quality player beside Partey. That's good experience there for him to learn beside. That's great. But I look at it around your squad, and you do need more experience. The problem is, like you said, it's Arsenal's new vision of they want to sign players of a certain age bracket. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing because you can sign players of that age that actually have top level experience.
With a plan,
and I think that's what Ed is lacking. He's lacking that notice. And to be fair, I don't know what Ed is doing. I think he's still living off the fact that he's barely remembered in your team from a decade and a half ago. Like I can barely remember what position he played, and I think he played midfield. But I think he played
centre midfield whenever Gilberto Silva was in there.
So basically, a spectator by choice, right? That sounds familiar.
Yeah, he was a spectator for most of the time.
It's not enough to say what we need as a direction.
Need to move on. We have 3 more games to talk about. So, George, come to you very quickly. Brighton coming back at Anfield to get a 2-2 draw against Liverpool. I didn't see this going. I thought Liverpool were going to win. I thought Brighton. You got
ahead of. Yeah, I'll go ahead of.
See you later.
Take care. Bye bye.
George, so in terms of Brighton, very, very good result for Brighton at Anfield. They deserved it, and their second half performance was a much deserved result. And I say this on a Liverpool fans channel, but Van Dijk maybe not looking like the Van Dijk of old, unsurprisingly.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I'm going to be careful how I say this, because obviously with Van Dijk, I think it's mostly to do with that injury. It was such a horrific injury, and we know obviously with those sort of things, it takes you a long, long time to come back. But ultimately, he's not looking anywhere near sort of fit enough or anything like close to what he was prior to it. So I do feel very sorry for him, obviously on a human level. I think also though, in terms of the other. Oh, that's good news as well for my prediction, having Wolves quite high up in the table at the start of the season. That Wolves have scored. But obviously, I think from the other point though, I think Liverpool's organisation and defence overall this season in matches that I've seen has been terrible. I'm not quite sure why that is, but they're totally open, and it's very noticeable. There wasn't just obviously on the 2 goals as well, but it's just. There's so much space now. If you attack Liverpool, it's quite shocking. And I think obviously on the second goal in particular, Robertson, I'm not quite sure what he was doing, playing players onside and moving himself across to make it an easier goal for Brighton to score. But as you said, you kind of expect now with Liverpool to kind of win these games, but ultimately that defence is something they're going to have to try and sort out if they do have serious title aspirations. Because obviously the team that Reece and myself said last week are going to win it have got the best defence in the league, and unfortunately, as we know, if you keep those clean sheets and you have that defence, you're going to win the league, because that's just how it works. So Liverpool need to sort that out pronto, because it's all very well having arguably the most potent attack in terms of the actual attackers. But if you've got a very leaky defence, you're always going to get exposed, unless you're playing against a Man United side that are not, are playing absolutely abysmally. So, I think great result for Brighton as well. Obviously, they're flying very high in the table, doing excellent things under Potter. It's a good result, obviously, for United, as it brings Liverpool quite slightly closer to us if we're going to go on a late title charge.
So our last Premier League game we're going to talk about is. The game at the St James's Park, Nathan, Newcastle, they're generally are looking at relegation here at the moment. The way they played, Graham Jones, yes, he's the interim manager, but his setup there against Chelsea, how defensively they sat so deep, they had no intent, literally 0 intent of attacking, no counter-attack game plan at all. They are in trouble because those players don't look like they're wanting to play for Newcastle at the moment.
No, they're really not. And with the thing with Graham Jones at the moment, I think he's just trying to hibernate the squad and get as many points as he can before the inevitable happens and they get a great coach in. But really, it's just hibernate the team until January, get what they need, and then push on for the second half of the season. Like Newcastle is sort of like your Brightons and everything. They're these teams that, what I call wave clubs, they go in waves of form. Like the first wave, they'll just have wins, draws everywhere. And then the second wave, they just can't win. They might get the odd draw there, but just losses everywhere. And to be honest, I think that's what it's going to be like this season. But for me, I don't think they're going to go down at all. I think, yes, there's a lot of saying that there's no team too good to go down, especially in the Premier League. But I just think with what's going to happen in January and what they're going to bring in and the new man that they get in, they will be safe this season. But just hibernate the team until January, salvage as much as you can now, and then rebuild there onwards. By the way, Wolves has just scored.
Reece, what do you think about Doug's question here about the red card given to Conte but not given to whoever that is?
I'll be honest, I only watched a handful of games at the weekend, but this was one of them, because obviously I wanted to watch the better team, School Villa, and frankly that's what happened. I completely agree on like the red to Konza. In terms of House, I'm surprised that wasn't given. I think both challenges equally deserved the red, in my opinion. I don't know what the boys think, but in terms of both situations, I do believe Konza and House both should have been sent off, not just Konza. I think that's a serious lack of judgment there. Yeah. And Shane O'Donnell's just updated, it's 2-0 Wolves as well. But in terms of just sheer judgment from referees and officials. It's a recurring theme again, boys, where it's just going to get worse over the season with decisions. And I'm not going to stand by it. Like, the fact I've said it repeatedly that the worst officials is the English ones, and it's not just taking them apart in that sense. It's the officials in the Premier League. If you put them against Serie A officials, or you put them against the Bundesliga, or you put them against Liga, yes, they are lesser leagues compared to the Premier League. But the one thing they actually have, even up here in the Scottish League, which is miles worse than the Premier League, there's better officials up here, far better officials. You could go and get the top referee from Italy, put him in the Premier League, and you would actually see things be done properly. And I think that's the thing, is who's actually doing these decisions, whether it be at Stanley Park, wherever it is, where VAR is, or where it's on the field. It's just not good enough. And I think that needs to be questioned now, is what exactly are these officials playing at? Because you get paid a fair amount of money as an official. You get a fair amount of wages on it, but they absolutely suck. And that needs to change. I wouldn't mind having English officials, obviously, because obviously it's their home league. You want them to succeed in there in terms of doing the best they can. But in terms of the English officials, I wouldn't put an English official ahead of a German, an Italian, or a Frenchman, because they actually do refereeing decisions better, and they're more hands-on with it. They're more hands-on because you see it week in, week out. They're actually at it. I watched the Roma Milan game at the weekend. I was buzzing watching that game, as you can guess, and the referee was all over them. Whether it be a Roma situation or when Hernandez got sent off, he didn't waste his time. He went straight up to him and he gave him his second booking and he sent him off. That's the difference. In the English games, there's so many delays, so much patience. If you know the decision, don't doubt yourself. Just do it.
So much doubt as well. And I think the worst thing about it is as well that on Sky, they literally have a show called Ref Watch. Says it all. Yeah,
they do. But yeah, to reiterate the question from Doug, yes, I agree. Definitely a red card on Konza. But in my opinion, I don't know what you guys think, but it was definitely a red card on Hoss as well.
Completely agree.
Definitely.
So to end on the final game, we have to talk about Cardiff City's game. Cardiff City were 3-0 down to Stoke City at half-time, coming back to draw 3 each. If you're interested in seeing the limbs that were in the away stand, you can check out Nathan's vlog on his channel, because it was a bit nuts. Honestly, it was one of those things where it's just... I specifically remember Cardiff City were singing, we've lost the ball, and how, you're nothing special, we lose every week, to the next one, you're in absolute hysterics. Especially against the Michael O'Neill side, he's really well organised. You'd never fall away from home against Michael O'Neill, Stoke City. You'd go back to draw 3 each. Honestly, what type of team talk did Morrison have to be able to come back and get that result, get that draw? Because Cardiff needed a point, and that was a big point for them in the end.
We do, otherwise we would have absolutely gone down in history. I mean, we've gone down in history enough already as it is the last few months, but Morrison, he absolutely whipped them at half-time, and rightfully so, made the right substitutions at the end of the day. Harris, Colwell, Moore has got to be the front three from now on, and yes, we're actually playing football for the first time since 2013. All this long ball stuff, direct, lacking of passes and all that, but at the end of the day, style of play I don't really care about as long as we win. That's all that matters to me. But there has been an improvement on what meets the eye with me as well. But yeah, actually tries to play football. Didn't really work in the first half, and our players look really uncomfortable with it. But moving on, absolutely superb. They really welcomed into the game with the fluid counter-attacking, quick passing football. Absolutely beautiful. And in the end, we did come back and get the draw. Probably should have won that game, but moving on now, we got to make sure that we do not get relegated. Otherwise, we will be absolutely doomed as a club financially and also with the fans. I mean, we're divided enough as it is, but this managerial appointment, which will happen after the international break, is absolutely crucial. And it all depends on what these absolutely stupid owners do, really. I mean,
there's a favourite to get the job.
At the moment, it's Michael Flynn. And for me, absolutely 100% no. If he does, then I'll go on a massive rant, honestly, because he is not the right man for the job for me. And to be honest, if we get him, I think we'll get relegated and things will get a lot worse.
Who do you think should honestly get the job? I think we all thought like Wilder and all that, I still stand by Eddie Howe, but that ain't going to happen. But in all fairness, though, who do you honestly think is the right guy for the job? Because, like you said, this is crucial.
This is probably the biggest appointment in the club's history as well, considering the absolutely sink or die position that we are in. For me, looking at the odds at the moment, Chris Wilder, he's pretty much ruled himself out. But number 2 for me is Jody Morris. We've got to build on from what we've got at the moment and really start and get on a rebuilding process and aim on a long-term plan and get back to where we should be and what the ownership want as well. But this is the thing that I find absolutely striking. 10 years ago, the attitude of the club was, yes, we've just lost an FA Cup final and we've lost the League Cup final narrowly, even though we should have won that game. Let's push on, win the championship, and then solidify ourselves in the Premier League and push into Europe where we should be as a club, including the finances that were going in. Now, we're debating on whether we're going to stay up in the league. I mean, that is not Cardiff City Football Club at all. As the size of the club we are and what we stand for as well, we should not be in this mess at all. We should be in the Premier League and we should be pushing up there now. Absolutely crazy.
I think I got a question out from Doug. How did Glenavon do this week? Glenavon, Clifton fell top of the league. Clifton have the best attacking defense in the league, in the Irish League at the moment. We took the lead early in the second half, and their goalkeeper passed it to our striker, and we were headed in. Then Clifton fell scored 2 goals in the last 10 minutes on the 81st and 84th minute. So 81st and 84th minute. The second goal was an absolutely wonderful strike to take the win, and Glenavon come away with nothing from the game. We currently sit 10th in the league, 1 win in our last 5, only won 2 games out of 10 so far. So that's how it's going for Glenavon. So that brings the end to the World of Football podcast this week. It's a bit of a longer show than it was originally planned, but I said there was so much to get through, and I'm a bit rusty on the hosting stuff because I haven't done as much as I have been doing. Doug knows the reasons why. So I hope everyone's enjoyed the podcast. Nathan, if there are any extra words of wisdom you want to give everyone?
Long story short, just get the right man in for Cardiff City, and apart from that, four vlogs coming up, 4 home games in a row, which is brilliant. Well, we got Wednesday night QPR, that's going to be a difficult game, and then Huddersfield at the weekend, difficult. Then we got the international break coming up with Wales games all at home. Hooray! Can't wait for it. Search my channel link in the description below, guys.
Reece, what's your motivational speech?
Andrew, man, that's deluded.
My motivational speech: embrace the chaos, bitches.
No worries. Sorry, Reece.
What I will say though is I actually do have another show in less than 20 minutes. It is with Adam Matic and Phil Brown, so that's going to be absolute fun. Previewing tomorrow's game. That's on the weekly Armchair at 9 o'clock if you guys want to watch. And in terms of just sheer class, come along, and Swansea are class. To be fair, I don't watch Swansea, so the only class Swansea get is none because I don't watch them. So that's as honest as I can get. Embrace the chaos.
And Mr. Kyle, what's your word to wisdom?
Ollie out.
Ollie out.
No, I think it's the roller coaster goes on. Lots still up for grabs in this season, I think, for all of our teams. It's going to be a very, very interesting week, and obviously the Champions League, as Doug sort of said, he's got his video coming out very shortly, so do remember to check that out. And also I would just re-urge you to go and check out Nathan's channel, because it's I do really enjoy his vlogs as well. So yeah, just make sure you do. And obviously the final thing as well, like, share and subscribe in relation to Doug's channel as well. Pleasure to be on as always.
Well, George has actually stole what I had to say. Yes, everyone, please do like, share, subscribe to Doug's channel. Check out all the descriptions below if you're interested in checking out any of our channels or our Twitters. Just don't follow Reece. He tweets a lot of crap. Don't bother about this. I'll stay away from that. But if you have enjoyed, make sure to come back again next week, Monday 7 p.m. Doug will be here, and hopefully,
Sergio Aguero.
Yeah, go Osuna.
That's very true because it was a very serious thing he suffered against Dani Alves. So we do wish him all the best, and also always keep an open mind to what footballers have to go through. But everyone, thank you very much for joining. Enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy the Champions League or the European Conference League if you're a Spurs fan. And we will see you next Monday night. Goodbye.